2,000 years ago, in a city of burning libraries and whispered secrets, a god picked up a pen, and what he wrote would topple empires of thought, ignite the Renaissance, and leave behind 4 words that still haunt every astrologer, alchemist, and mystic alive today. As above, so below. His name was Hermes Trismegistus, Hermes the thrice great. Not quite a man, not quite a myth, and definitely not just one person. And the wisdom attributed to him makes a claim so audacious that the church tried to bury it, scientists tried to debunk it, and seekers have spent 2 millennia trying to recover it. That claim is this: you are not separate from God, you never were. And before this video is over, you'll understand exactly what that means, and why some of the sharpest minds in history risked everything to find out. This is Hermeticism. To understand Hermeticism, you first have to understand its supposed author. And that's harder than it sounds, because Hermes Trismegistus was born from a collision of 2 civilizations. When the Greeks arrived in Egypt, they looked at the local gods and tried to find their own faces in them. They looked at Thoth, the ibis-headed Egyptian god of writing, speech, and the moon, and they saw their own Hermes, the winged messenger who carried words between worlds and guided souls into the land of the dead. Both were messengers. Both were guides for the dead, what the Greeks called a psychopomp. Both ruled the strange magic of language, so the Greeks decided they were the same being. And Thoth was no minor deity. The Egyptians called him the heart of Ra, the tongue of Atum, the throat of the god whose name cannot be spoken. He was divine speech given a body, inventor of the alphabet, the one who taught humanity to freeze knowledge in symbols so it would outlive the people who knew it. So when Greek Hermes met Egyptian Thoth in the melting pot of Greco-Roman Alexandria, something new was born. Not Greek, not Egyptian, a third thing, a teacher of teachers. And his followers gathered around him, convinced that if they could understand his wisdom, they could experience the same blinding illumination he had, the moment of total knowing the Greeks called gnosis. So why thrice great? Scholars have argued for centuries, which is fitting for a figure of layered meaning. The oldest clue comes from an ibis shrine in Saqqara. A record from around 172 BC refers to the greatest and greatest god, great Hermes. That stacking of greatest upon greatest is very Egyptian. Say a thing once, it's true. Say it 3 times, it becomes absolute. Another tradition says he mastered 3 domains: greatest priest, greatest philosopher, greatest king, knowledge, wisdom, and power united in one being. A later explanation tied it to his praise of a divine trinity, one nature in 3. Whatever the origin, the effect is the same. Thrice great tells you this is no ordinary sage, but someone whose greatness can't be contained by a single word. Here's where it gets strange. According to the Egyptian historian Manetho, there were over 36,000 books written under the name of Hermes Trismegistus, and enough to fill an entire temple library. Books on the soul, on creation, on astrology, alchemy, magic, and healing. No single human wrote 36,000 books, and that's the point. In the ancient world, if you were a devotee of Hermes, of the Lord of all learning, and you discovered something true, the natural thing was to credit the God of wisdom, not yourself. True wisdom deserved to be ascribed to him. The philosopher Iamblichus understood this. He wrote that Hermes presides over all sacred knowledge, that he is one and the same throughout the universe, and which is exactly why their ancestors signed their discoveries with his name. So Hermes Trismegistus isn't one author, he's a whole tradition wearing a single mask. A name that meant this knowledge is too true to belong to any one person. Most of those texts are gone, lost to fire and the deliberate destruction of pagan learning. What survives is a handful of fragments rescued from a shipwreck of forgotten wisdom. The most important of those fragments is the Corpus Hermeticum. For most of the Middle Ages, the West believed it was gone, lost since late antiquity. Empires fell, cities burned. But somehow, on fragile pages copied by hand, the corpus survived, a quiet proof of something this very tradition teaches, that the mind, that insubstantial mystery, can outlast the hardest blows the material world can throw. Then in the 15th century, a manuscript surfaced in Italy and caused chaos. The scholar Marsilio Ficino was translating the complete works of Plato for the powerful Cosimo de' Medici. Plato, the crown jewel of Western philosophy. But when a copy of the Corpus Hermeticum landed on his desk, Ficino stopped translating Plato. He believed these Hermetic writings were older, closer to the source, which in his mind made them more authoritative than Plato and even than parts of the Bible. There's a catch. The manuscript had passed through an 11th century Byzantine scholar, Michael Psellus, a devout Christian with no love for pagan magic. So he likely copied these texts only to clean them up, scrubbing away the suspicious occult elements, which means the version that reached the Renaissance may already have been edited and quietly censored before anyone in Florence ever read it. Why did the Renaissance fall so hard for Hermes? Because he gave them a beautiful and dangerous idea. It was called the Prisca Theologia, the ancient theology, the belief that one true wisdom underlies every religion on earth, that long ago God revealed the truth to humanity all at once, and the great faiths are just scattered fragments of that single revelation. Later thinkers called this the perennial philosophy, and it didn't die. The traditionalist school of the 20th and 21st centuries built on exactly this, that humanity once received a perfect divine truth, lost it, and will stay trapped in materialism until we recover it. In the Renaissance, the dream went further. People genuinely believed Hermes lived in the time of Moses. Look at the floor of Siena Cathedral, laid in 1481. Hermes is carved there, instructing men of East and West, named the contemporary of Moses, a pagan Egyptian sage immortalized on the floor of a Christian cathedral. Some believed Hermes taught Moses, others that Moses taught Hermes. Either way, Hermes had become a founding father of the Judeo-Christian world, the bridge uniting reason and faith. It was a glorious vision, and it was about to collapse. The collapse came at the dawn of the 17th century from a single scholar with a single weapon, language. His name was Isaac Casaubon, and he refused to believe pagan prophets had foreseen Christ. So he read the Hermetic texts forensically, word by word. And what he found was damning: Platonic ideas, Jewish concepts, Christian language. These weren't the words of a man who lived alongside Moses. They belonged to the early Christian era. Casaubon concluded the texts were composed not in ancient Egypt but in Alexandria between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD, a city ruled by Rome but humming with Greek, Egyptian, and Jewish traditions. In one stroke, the dream died. Add a fierce anti-Hermetic backlash in the church, and the rise of modern science, and the thrice great one came crashing down. Hermeticism was driven underground, but underground isn't dead. It took shelter in secret societies, the Rosicrucians, the Freemasons, and later, the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. The wisdom didn't vanish. It learned to whisper. Then into 1945, the sand gave something back. Near Nag Hammadi in Egypt, 3 new, intact Hermetic writings surfaced, unread in over 1,000 years. One, the discourse on the 8th and the 9th, proved what scholars had only suspected, that a Hermetic believer was initiated through a series of grades, climbing past the 7 planets and the fixed star, until at last they beheld God and became one with the divine. The scholar Gilles Quispel argued it is now certain that around the start of the Christian era, a secret society existed in Alexandria, almost like a Masonic lodge. Its members called each other brethren, were initiated through a baptism of spirit, shared a sacred meal, and read the Hermetic writings as guides for spiritual progress. Did such communities really exist? We can't be certain, but it's plausible these treatises grew from loose circles of educated people in Hellenistic Egypt, people who had experienced altered states, and others who believed such experiences were possible. And here's the twist that undid Casaubon's victory. Even if the texts were written down late, the ideas could be ancient. The core vision, that the world flows out of God like light from the sun, that all is one, and one is all, is profoundly Egyptian. The surviving texts split into two families: the technical Hermetica, the practical stuff, astrology, medicine, alchemy, magic, texts like the Emerald Tablet, some reaching back to the 2nd or 3rd century BC, and the religio-philosophical Hermetica, the spiritual core, mystical and initiatory, written between the 1st and 3rd centuries AD. At its heart sits the Corpus Hermeticum, 17 anonymous treatises gathered into one book by an unknown hand for reasons we no longer know. But whether technical or spiritual, all of them circle one obsession, not philosophy, not argument, but salvation, because the purpose of the Hermetica was never to win a debate. It was to change you, and to understand how, you have to understand a distinction English fumbles. There are two kinds of knowing. The Greeks called the first epistem, propositional knowledge, knowing that something is true, facts you can write down and prove. The second is gnosis. And gnosis is something else entirely, not reached through logic or experiment. Knowledge by direct acquaintance, knowing because you have seen, not because you can describe it. Other languages preserve this. Spanish, saber versus connaître. French, savoir versus connaître. German, wissen versus kennen. The first is knowing a fact, the second is knowing a reality from the inside. Gnosis is that second kind, raised to the divine. The skeptic's great mistake is to insist that because we can't prove God in the language of episteme, we can't know God at all. But that's the wrong tool. You don't measure a sunset with a ruler. Carl Jung captured it. Asked late in life whether he believed in God, he paused. Believe? Hard to say. I know. I don't need to believe. He didn't mean a bearded man on a throne. For Jung, God was being itself. As the ancient sages put it, God is an infinite sphere whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. That is gnosis, not belief, direct knowing. Now this is the part everyone gets wrong, and the difference is everything. Hermeticists talk about gnosis. So do the Gnostics. They are not the same. The Gnostics were world deniers. In their vision, the soul's spark fell into matter and got trapped. The material world was a prison built by a flawed, malevolent creator called the demiurge, and the only escape was death. To the Gnostic, this world is Plato's cave, a darkness you must flee. The Hermeticist looks at the same world and says no. For the Hermeticist, the cosmos isn't a prison. It's beautiful, perfect, the second God made in the image of the first. You don't escape the world. You embody the divine within it, bringing the good, the true, and the beautiful down into matter, because that is what the source wants. So the Gnostic sees two warring realities, spirit against matter. The Hermeticist is a non-dualist. There is only one reality, one spiritual light that is the source of everything. And crucially, you don't wait until you're dead. Gnosis, union with the divine, all of it is possible while you are still alive. Your task isn't to flee the world. Your task is to take care of it. So what does that cosmos look like? Start with the ancient model. Earth at the center, ringed by the 7 planetary spheres: Moon, Mercury, Venus, Sun, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, and beyond them the fixed stars. But that's only space and time. Beyond the stars lie 3 more spheres. The word beyond is misleading since they exist outside space entirely. The 8th sphere is the Ogdoad, and the home of souls before they descend into bodies, and where, if they lived in reverence, they return. Above it, the 9th sphere, the Ennead, the home of Nous. That word Nous is so important it's better left untranslated. People say mind or intellect but that's wrong. Nous has nothing to do with cold reasoning. It's closer to intuition, imagination, divine revelation. A kind of spiritual sight that takes in everything at once, even the infinite essence of God. It is the vehicle of gnosis. And here's the secret at the center of it all. The light of Nous is identical with the light inside you. The Hermeticist's whole quest is to realize that his own inner light and the universal light are one, so he can ascend to the 10th and final sphere. That 10th sphere is the One, or the Good, or simply the Source. This is God, unbegotten, invisible, the origin of all things, who created the universe not by building it, but by imagining it. We all live inside God's imagination, as above, so below. All is one, and one is all. Now let's open Book 1 of the Corpus, where it all begins, not with an argument, but with a vision. Hermes is deep in meditation, wrestling with the oldest questions. How did the world come to be, and who made it? A being appears and introduces itself. I am Poimandres, the Nous of the Supreme. I know what you want, and I am with you everywhere. Hermes answers, I want to know the nature of all things. I want to know God. And he slips into an ecstatic state. The Hermetica insist that beyond ordinary eyesight is a higher faculty, the eyes of the heart, the eyes of Nous, and only with those can the true nature of reality be seen. Poimandres changes form, and Hermes beholds an endless expanse of clear, joyful light, and feels overcome with love. Then darkness rises, a snake-like, watery chaos that lets out a wailing roar. From the light comes a response, the holy word, descending onto that dark nature. Then God brings forth Anthropos, the original man, whom he loves as his own child, because man bears the image of the Father. And so of every creature on earth, only man is double, mortal in body, immortal in soul. We're the one creature with one foot in matter and one in the divine, the only one who can bring the spiritual down into the flesh. Then comes the vision within the vision. Now Hermes can't just watch. He fixes his Nous on the light, staring into Poimandres until he trembles, and it hits him. While staring at the universal light, he is also looking into himself. No boundary between the cosmic light and his own. No subject, no object. Total unity. But here's the catch every tradition runs into. If we're divine, why do we suffer? The Hermetic answer is haunting. When the soul descends through the planetary spheres into a body, it gets corrupted, not by the body itself, which is innocent, but by the passions. In Book 13, perhaps the most powerful chapter in the Corpus, Hermes names 12 tormentors to his son Tat: ignorance, sorrow, intemperance, lust, injustice, greed, deceit, envy, treachery, anger, recklessness, and malice. 12, corresponding to the 12 signs of the zodiac. The Hermeticist's astrology isn't fortune-telling. It's a map of the soul's wounds. The position of the stars at your birth determines which mix of passions invaded you. And for most people, Those dark powers move in and stay for life. So, how do you get them out? You can't argue them away. When Tat begs to learn the secret of rebirth, Hermes answers in riddles, because this cannot be taught. In Zen, they call it the great doubt, the pressure that builds until it breaks open into awakening. The master can point at the door, only the student can walk through it. What Hermes does instead is summon light. He calls 10 powers of light into Tat's body, and one by one they drive out the darkness. Self-control expels intemperance, justice chases out injustice, generosity overcomes greed, truth banishes deceit, until all 12 tormentors take flight, scattering with a rush of wings. And Tat changes. He enters a state of divine madness and speaks, "Father, I no longer see with my eyes. I am in heaven and in the earth, in water and air. I am before the womb and after it. I am everywhere. Father, I see the all, and I see myself in Nous." This is cosmic consciousness. Tat has been reborn. But even rebirth isn't the end of the climb. In the Nag Hammadi discourse, the 8th and the 9th, the student has already been reborn, and now ascends higher, beyond the cosmos itself. And the way he gets there is one of the strangest, most beautiful details in the tradition. He sings, "When Egyptian priests praised their gods, they chanted the 7 Greek vowels in a sacred order, a sound said to be more beautiful than the flute or lyre. 7 vowels mapped to the 7 notes of the octave, mapped to the 7 planets. The whole cosmos sung as a single chord. Hermes, his son, and the reborn brethren chant. A voice sings a tone, the choir answers, and with each vowel the student's consciousness rises through another sphere until he passes beyond the cosmos and beholds the 8th, the 9th, and finally the 1, where he sees a fountain bubbling with life. A moment of fear grips him. Hermes warns him the final stage must be crossed alone. Words can guide him no further. From here he can only express himself in silent hymns, understood by no faculty except the inner one. And his most profound statement is simply this: what I am seeing cannot be put into words. And that brings us to the deepest paradox of all. Thoth invented writing, which lets us preserve experience and transmit it across centuries. A gift. But the Greeks had a word for it, pharmakon, meaning both medicine and poison. Writing heals by preserving knowledge, but poisons too. People read books and believe they now possess the knowledge, when really they possess only the description of someone else's experience. They mistake the menu for the meal. And yet, here is Thoth's final secret. Writing itself can have a magical effect on the mind. Even though language can never express the ineffable, the right words in the right order can resonate. They can't hand you gnosis, but they can point you toward your own path to it. The Hermetic sentences, scholars say, get carved into your memory. They keep working on you even when you're not thinking about them. That's the real magic, not the information, but the resonance. So let's end where the Hermetica ends, with you. For the Hermeticist, death as we imagine it doesn't exist. Nothing truly perishes until there's only transformation. The way energy is never destroyed but only changes form. When the body dissolves, it returns to nature. The soul returns to the cosmos. New creatures rise from the old. The wheel turns and the mystery is renewal. But there is one real death, and it isn't physical. It's the death of the soul that dies in ignorance of God, weighed down by its passions, falling back down the ladder it climbed to begin the cycle again. Dying inwardly, while the body still breathes, because the Hermetica dares to say it plainly, the true man is above the gods, or at least their equal. The gods of heaven never leave heaven. but man ascends to heaven, measures it, understands it, and does it all without ever leaving the earth. He is, the text says, a mortal God, while the heavenly God is an immortal man. And so it all comes down to a single choice offered in every moment. There are two kinds of being, the mortal and the divine, and you cannot have both at once. As one grows, the other fades. You can chase the appetites of the body and call it living, or you can make yourself equal to God, because like is only understood by like. Allow yourself to grow, the text says, until you are equal to that which is immeasurable. Leap beyond all that is bodily, transcend all time, become the eternal, and then you will understand God. So the question Hermes Trismegistus left, carved into those fragile surviving pages 2,000 years ago, is the same one he's asking you right now. Mortality or immortality, which will you choose?